This is Kimberley, everybody. She began her designing career in her local church at around age 14. Fast forward 17 years later, she's pursuing her passion and has taken her freelancing graphic design business full-time with Coco Betty Creative Services. Her aim is to empower CEOs, leaders, directors to take their business to the next level through smart strategic planning and effective execution. So without further ado, Kimberley, I'd like you to hand the stage over to you and have a great talk.
Okay, thank you. Wow. Hi, everyone. I hope that you are all doing really, really well and that you are enjoying Stronger 2022. Today, I'll be talking to you about niche markets, niche communities, and how you can own your niche. As you can see there, my name is Kimberley Wedderburne. When I first joined the Zoom, it has my maiden name because I do use both. Some know me as Kimberley Stewart, some know me as Kimberley Wedderburne, but my name is Kimberley Wedderburne, and I thought I'd just start by telling you a little bit about myself. I am a 31-year-old mother of two beautiful girls. I was born and raised in the city of Nottingham, and I still reside here today. I am a PK. If you know what that means, that's a pastor's kid. I'm actually a pastor's kid. My mum is also a pastor's kid. And so we have a long history of church leadership from within our family. I currently serve in a few areas within our local church, Shekinah Show Ministries here in Nottingham, as the worship leader and creative director. So within the last year, as you heard from my bio, that I took a huge leap, like a massive leap, after much confirmation from God, to take what was essentially, a graphic design side hustle to now becoming a full-time digital design agency called Coco Betty Creative Services. So, when I just introduced myself a few seconds ago as a 31-year-old mother of two, let's change that, shall we, to a 31-year-old entrepreneur, business owner, and mother of two beautiful, beautiful girls. It has been a wild and yet wonderful journey over the past year. My creative journey started at around 14, 15, when I started creating designs for my parents in our local church. I made everything from logos to magazines, to booklets, flyers, you name it, I was trying to make it. But at that point in my life, I didn't really believe in myself. I didn't really believe that the designing, my designing capabilities were a real skill or a talent that I actually possessed. But little did I know that my deep roots within church leadership would birth my own passion for the local church. So after a few wrong turns along the way, career-wise, I tried apprenticeships. I've got some ghastly stories. I worked at KFC. I'm sure you can imagine why it was one of the highlights of my career. I enjoyed working at KFC for the food. I did some time in finance and banking. I actually worked for the civil service, but after going through all of those different areas within many industries, I ended up back where I first started at 15, designing for my local church. Now, I'm sure you're wondering what my life story has to do with niche marketing or niche communities. But before we dive deeper, I want you to if you are making any notes or taking this in, I want you to understand that it's important to recognize in your pursuit of finding your niche, that you also pursue finding yourself. You see, it was on my quest for self-actualization that I realized that what I was looking for had been there all along. So what is niche? What is a niche and niche markets, niche communities? The dictionary defines a niche as a specialized segment of a market for a particular kind of product or service. So for an example, the fashion industry is it's a massive and vast market. But there are niche markets within the larger fashion industry for things such as weddings, maternity, children's fashion, and I'm sure you can imagine the list goes on. And so even within those smaller niches, we can actually even break it down even further. So say, for instance, within the wedding industry, we could break it down further to a smaller niche, such as Asian weddings, for instance. There's a large market where people can just target particular audiences and groups within the Asian communities, or even within some of the African traditional wedding communities as well. So those are the ways in which we can kind of break down niches from a larger industry into smaller categories or brackets. And so the dictionary defines niche marketing now as the business of promoting and selling a product or service to this specialized segment of a market. So ways in which you can do that, for example, are creating specific campaigns and advertisements using things like we do now, social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok is blowing up at the moment. And then also using influencer marketing through these social media platforms to advertise the campaigns and advertisements. You can use SEO, which I'm sure you've heard of, social search engine optimization, and email marketing. And there's so many other different ways in which you can actually now promote and sell the product or service to that specialized segment, which we are calling a niche within a market. So I want to just quickly talk about Primark as an example of an organization or a company that owned their niche. We are post-pandemic. Post-pandemic, it's been a crazy, wild couple of years with everything that the entire world has been experiencing. And if you shop at Primark, I appreciate some people don't, but I'm sure most people know about Primark. During the pandemic, when we were in lockdowns, we were unable to obviously go out and to conduct shopping as we, clothing shopping as we usually would. And so whilst most stores on the high street actually have online shopping as a method of transaction for them, Primark are as far as I'm aware of, one of the only high street retailers who do not offer online shopping. And so during the pandemic, there were a lot of comments and a lot of customers reaching out to Primark. I'll even include myself, reaching out to Primark to try to get them to go over into the online shopping arena. And Primark stood their ground. They owned their niche. They said, actually, if we were to go over into the online shopping arena, we wouldn't be able to maintain our prices the way that they are. We wouldn't be able to maintain and keep our loyal customers and allow them to continue to keep coming back to us because of the price difference if we were to venture into online retailing. And so for me, Primark shows us what it means when they recognise who their target audience is. They are on the high street alongside many other stores such as H&M, such as River Island, Zara. There are many stores alongside them on the high street. However, they have decided that because they are primarily about keeping their costs low, they attract people who have maybe a lower or smaller budget where they can come and get great clothing for a lower amount. They want to be able to remain within their niche. And so they decided and took what many may say as a big loss, really, to stay within their area. And so they actually made a large loss during the pandemic. But then when the lockdowns were lifted and people were able to go back to their stores, they actually recovered quite a significant amount of the cost that they lost by the sales and the things that they did when the stores were open. So I just wanted to kind of bring that in there just to show you how when owning your niche can seem a particular way at the beginning in terms of a loss that could be made, if you stand your ground and you own who you are, it will pay off. So what is the importance of a niche? Think about it from a CCC, I call it a consumer, client, or a congregant. From a consumer, client, congregant perspective, this will help you to ensure that either your consumer, your client, your congregant, their experience will always be a priority. And as humans, it is within our nature to feel a sense of belonging. That's what we look for. To find like-minded individuals within this, busy world of conformity. So niche markets actually allow us to be our true selves. They enable us to create direct strategies to target our market, who we are trying to target, and allow us to achieve easier results. So the importance of a niche, it creates belonging. You are now then able to create direct strategies that will access those who are looking for that belonging. And then because you have created a direct strategy, it's easier to achieve particular results. What are the benefits then of niche marketing? There is less competition. It's easy to think that if you niche down within a larger market and focused on a particular target audience, then you'd have more competition in that particular niche, but it's actually the opposite. The more you become specialized in your area, in your field, then you actually begin to distinguish yourself from your neighbors, or that's what I call them, or your competitors. And so that actually niching down helps to distinguish you. So then when people come, so say for instance, you have a particular type of shop and your neighbor has a similar type of shop, but you offer different colors or you offer different prints to whatever your neighbor is offering, then you actually, whilst you may be similar, you stand out. And that's what the benefits are of niche marketing. Clarity is another benefit. Being in a niche gives you the opportunity to be more strategic in your approach to those you are targeting. Because you've cut down the amount of people you are actually trying to attract, instead of trying to attract 1,000 people now, you're actually trying to only attract 100 people out of that 1,000. You are actually able to create direct marketing materials that will offer a level of guarantee. So instead of out of the 1,000 people, you only get 10 people. Now, out of your 100 people, you're more likely to get maybe 50 because it's directly, they are looking for what you offer and you are directly trying to attract them to. Another benefit of niche marketing is you actually then end up becoming some sort of an expert. Instead of being a jack of all trades, master of none, being in a niche actually helps you to become an expert in your field. This will help you to retain a level of loyalty and help you to attract those who are in need of whatever it is that you are specifically offering as a service or as a product. So I want to just talk briefly about my experience with niche marketing. My experience started within my local church. A number of years ago, we were having a discussion regarding our church, regarding where we are, where we've been, and where we believe God is really calling us to at this next phase for our ministry. It had become quite apparent that we as a church were just trying to either replicate or emulate much larger churches much larger churches than what, we had a 100-person congregation. So trying to implement certain things that larger churches were doing, it didn't really work for us. We'd become too generic with our approach. We'd become too generic with our strategies. And ultimately, the way we were really measuring our successes had become too generic also. Because the kingdom of God is also quite like a one big market, we realized that we had to kind of niche down within the kingdom of God to effectively and excellently carry out the purpose of God for our local church. I had a personal light bulb moment during this time and season that we were in as a church. It was at this moment that I began to recognize that I actually had a passion for the local churches and the gift that I started to see manifesting within myself for administration and for strategy. So using prayer and research and evaluation, we were able to understand that those our ministry were called to and what they require from their local church. And then what we had to do was begin to adjust our expectation towards this. If you're used to doing things a particular way for a long period of time, as I said earlier on, we have a long history of church leadership within my family. My mum's dad was a bishop. My mum is a pastor. I serve within leadership within my church. And so after a while, you begin to see that some of the things that had previously worked no longer do. And so it takes a period of time to really adjust your mind to change. And so that can also often take place within business or within whatever area you may be, if you've been doing something for a long time, or if you had a particular expectation of how you thought things should be, after reflection, to change that now also takes a bit of work. And so once we were looking at adjusting our expectations, we realized that certain things had to change. And one of the first things that we realized is that we kind of came under the category of a prophetic ministry. And so with that, we had to adjust our minds to the fact that this would mean that many people may come to our church, and many people may come to receive prophetic insight. However, they may not actually become members and join our church. Because after a while, we were wondering, what's happening in terms of people joining, people staying, our congregation number building and developing. But what we noticed is that a lot of people would come to receive this insight. But then once they received this word and commission from the Lord, then they would go off and to carry it out. One thing we also noticed as well is that we recognized that those who actually did join our church, they joined our church membership for a specific reason. And they actually came from much larger church organisations. And the thing that they enjoyed about us was that they appreciated the smaller, more personal and family approach that we had. And this actually gave them a sense of belonging. And so one of the niche marketing tactics that we used is we use real life imagery for our advertisements and our marketing. So the person that you'd see on a flyer online, not just from our leadership team, but literally people in our congregation who sit in the chairs, who sit in the pews, who help around the building, is who you'd actually see on the flyers. And then when people came to our church, it gave them already a sense of familiarity, that they'd seen this face on the flyer at the door welcoming them, and it was them who actually they saw when they first entered the building. It helped to foster this idea of family, of intimacy, and of a personal touch. So after my experience with my local church, I then went on to set up my own design agency. And I knew immediately that my primary niche was going to be the church and or faith-based organisations. Whilst I have designed for others, other industries and other people, I knew because of my heart and my passion that churches and faith-based organisations and groups would be my primary focus. Then actually niching down further, my secondary focus would be even smaller churches or faith-based organisations who are still trying to establish themselves within their niche, who actually maybe then even needed support and advice and consultation, maybe even a bit of coaching. After the experience I had with our church, I understood what it meant to then build rapport and relationship with some of these smaller organisations, and to help create long-lasting friendships through design. So my aim then was to create not only amazing graphics, but to actually give them that training and that support. So what are some of the key takeaways that we can have when we think about niching down? What I've learned in my time in business and in ministry and within church leadership is that it's probably your niche is where your passion is. That thing, when I was 15 and I had finished my GCSEs and I did I don't think they have it anymore, it's called a GNVQ. I did a GNVQ in IT and graphic design. And I didn't know at that point that graphics was really my thing, that design, that I really had an eye and a skill for it. And so, like I said, I ended up, after chasing other, what seemed to be and what was perceived to be sustainable careers, I ended up coming right back to the thing that, or where my heart is, should I say. And so if you are considering where your niche may be, think about the things that you are passionate about. Think about the things that your heart gets excited about, that fills you with zeal, that gets you excited. What are these things? And often, sometimes people are afraid to attempt to enter into a niche because what if it doesn't actually exist at the moment? That's the beautiful thing about niche markets, is that you are able to sometimes even create or be an initiator of something truly, truly wonderful. There are people out there, I spoke about it, about niche markets allow us to be our true selves. There are people out there that are waiting on you and what it is that you offer. And they are waiting for somebody who is like them to give them that encouragement and also courage to step out too. So if you're considering where your niche may be, it's probably where you are most passionate. I find as well that when you are passionate about the thing, about the area, you're more likely to see consistency, you're more likely to see this passion or this ministry or this business actually have longevity and sustainability, because it is something that is innate to you, it is natural to you, it is what God has placed within you. So he himself will actually help to sustain and to manage this for you. Redefine what success looks like for you. One of the things we found as a church, that we had to decide what we actually would say is a success. Has this been a successful year? Has this been a successful season for our church? And so in past years, what we would have said has been successful is, all the normal things, stuff like a number of people being baptized, or a number of people actually just even being saved and accepting Christ, or a number of people joining our ministry, or that kind of thing. When actually, when we realized who we are within the kingdom, it was actually maybe the number of people coming, receiving a prophetic word, and then that word actually coming to pass, or whether it be people who have come to us for mental health recovery. It's actually seeing that individual or number of people being transformed, being changed, seeing them going from deep depression and anxiety to actually seeing them living fully functioning lives, experiencing joy, happiness and peace. And so when you recognize that actually our church or your organization or business, whatever it may be, may not be the same as others whilst being in a larger market, you redefine your successes. And so it allows you to then limit the feeling of disappointment, limit the feeling of failure, because actually you're not failing in what you're doing, you're actually succeeding in the things that you are doing, because what success is to you is not success to somebody else. And so that was a big light bulb moment for us, that whilst our church may not look like somebody else's, we're actually doing what God has created us to do. We're actually doing a good job. Another key thing is research and evaluate. If we had not researched and evaluated, brought the teams together, had many discussions, I don't think we would have actually learned who we truly are and accepted that. I don't think we would have learned who our target audience, target congregation really is, and allowed us to, the point before, redefine our successes. It through evaluation and through research, through feedback and encouragement, we were actually able to change the way that we were doing things and make the difference in our churches and our local communities and start to really create some impact. Another thing that we can take away from this is to know your audience. When you know, through the research, through the evaluation, when you know who your audience is, and also know your neighbours. Remember, I use the term neighbours instead of competitors. Know who is next door, know who's in your vicinity, know who's in your area, know how they are doing, what services they offer, what makes them stand out, and then also how you in turn can stand out from your neighbours. It's so important to know who you are targeting and who is beside you. Stand out in your niche. I want to encourage you to take the leap. If I had not taken the leap, I don't even think I'd be probably sharing with you all today. It takes courage. That's my final point. It takes courage to stand out and to own who you are. God has created each and every single one of us for a purpose. for something incredible. He has created us. The Bible says that we are chosen. We are holy. We are a holy people. We are peculiar. He has chosen us for something incredible. But oftentimes we don't pursue what is our passion because we are afraid to fail. We are afraid to make a loss. We are afraid of what others may say. Like I gave the example of Primark, they probably had so much pushing from different areas to say, no, you'd be making so much money if you actually went online. But they stood their ground. They owned their niche. They owned who they were. They owned, if we want to say it in a spiritual context, they owned their calling. And they said, no, actually, if we want to stay committed to our loyal customers, if we want to stay committed to our loyal congregants, to our loyal consumers or our clients, then we have to own who we are. Don't be afraid to fail. To be honest, I don't really think there is anything such as failure. I think there are only lessons that we can truly learn in life and through business and through ministry. And so it's really important that we recognize that we have to stand out. We weren't called to be the same. We weren't all created to be like everybody else. And so when we take the step, when we take courage, have a great team around you. That's one thing I will say as well. Whether you are in ministry, create a solid leadership team. Whether you are in business, have great accountability from other entrepreneurs or other friends, you know, who will give you counsel, who will give you their wisdom, who will also maybe sometimes give you that shoulder to lean on, because it's hard being who you're meant to be. It's not easy, you know, and it's great to have great people around you who will encourage you to take courage and to stand out in all of the things that you are called to do. So where can you find me? I'm on my main Instagram is Confidently Kim. My business has an Instagram, Coco Betty Creative, and my local church here in Nottingham is actually Show Ministries, and those are my emails. Thank you so much for listening. I think I'm a bit under time. But I hope that's okay. And I'm just so grateful for this opportunity to be able to share with you all today. Thank you so much.
Kimberley, thank you so much. That was such a beautiful presentation and a rich teaching and so much advice. You covered so much ground. So I just want to thank you for taking the time to prepare that talk. I just feel like you carry such a passion for your work. You have a real fire and a passion for what you do, and that certainly came across. Thank you so much for transmitting that. Seeing you just makes me want to go out and do something amazing. So that was such a great talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I wanted to ask you, being a mother myself of 2 small children, my daughter's 6, my son is 8, how do you juggle this? How do you balance family and ministry?
That is so wild, because my 2 girls are the exact same age groups.
How do you do it, girl?
I've got an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old, and honestly, it's not without help.
Yeah.
I think my love for strategy and organization, I have many a planner. Okay. I have a few apps that I use that help to plan. But I find that it's a village. Like right now, I have some incredible friends who are watching my children for me today, because this door behind me would have definitely been opening a few times if they were home with me today. So I definitely have a great village. My parents are local. I have my sisters are also local as well. I have a lot of people around me who help to support. But also taking time. I've learned the hard way, if I'm honest, about burnout. The end of last year, after going into the business, it really took its toll on me with the children. One of my daughters was having a bit of health issues as well, so it was a bit of a trying time. And so I've realised and learned that I'm allowed to take a break. And it was actually in taking a break that I did the best financially actually in my business. And so again, like I think I said, it's that fear of failure, that, but if I take a day off, what would happen? If I didn't show up how I usually would, what would happen? And the Lord showed me that, no, if you take the break, everything will be all right. If you rest, no, everything will be okay. And so going forward into this year now, I'm realizing that rest and effective planning is how I'm going to make the most of my time and my business, and carving out specific windows. So I intend to take every half term. Me and the kids will be doing something, maybe not for the entire week, but, you know, for a few days we'll go away, or we'll make some plans, you know, cinema days out, and, you know, that kind of thing. That also helps with the children's expectation. I found that there was a bit of a tug of war between them feeling, oh, you're always working, or you're always doing this, or you're always doing that. But knowing that we have things to look forward to together has been really, really good for us.